Hello to all. It's your boy A Surfer here. Coming at we're gonna check out some Hawaiian ghost stories, guys, and um we're gonna read it out of this book here. This book is written by Mr. Glen Grant. I want to shout him out. Um Shout out to you, Glen Grant. Thank you for this awesome book, and we're gonna review his book today. So we're doing a book review and we're gonna read some of his stories. So the first story is about the Kappa, guys, and here we go. Let's get straight into it. The search for the Japanese obake, finding a home in Hawaii, is even more interesting in the case of the Kappa. Almost every rural village in Meiji, Japan had a tradition concerning these comic-looking creatures with deadly passions, who lived in rivers, ponds, lakes, or the sea. The Kappa was an ugly, amphibious creature about the size of a small boy of 3 to 4 years of age. The creature's skin was a scaly greenish yellow, its seaweed-like hair green and stringy. Its hands and feet were webbed, and on its back it wore a hard shell like a tortoise. The Kappa smelled like foul fish, as it would sneak from its watery home in the dead of the night to steal vegetables from the villagers, disemboweled horses and other livestock, rape women, or drag young children into the pond, where they would pluck out their livers through their anuses. Not a very likable creature, the Kappa. Parents would admonish their children to stay away from certain ponds in fear the Kappa would drag them in to kill them. The devilish monster could disguise itself as a human child and could then convince its unsuspecting victims to play push-pull finger near the edge of the water. When the fingers were hooked, then the Kappa would transform itself into its true being and yank the child into the pond. The only way to catch a Kappa was to empty the small saucer of water that rested on the monster's head. When it left the pond, the creature sustained its superhuman powers by the water carried in the built-in saucer. And I got a picture in this book I'm going to show you guys at the end of the Kappa. Whenever the saucer emptied, the Kappa was helpless, and an agreement could be made between the monster and the captor. In exchange for never harming another human being, the Kappa would be released. In this manner, certain villages' families had guaranteed themselves protection from the water monster. For most second or third generation Japanese Americans in Hawaii, the Kappa, if they have heard of such a thing, is merely a Japanese folklore. And then we're gonna go. Here we go. For example, in the late 1940s, in a village near Hilo is on the island where the volcano is. It's the big island. A story began concerning a small boy who had drowned in a pool of water. The body had been found sitting in a very natural position on a boulder at the bottom of the pond. The child's eyes were wide open, his position unnaturally reposed, as if he were sitting on a chair at home. Soon after his body was recovered and buried, the young children walking near the water could feel a force tugging on their pants or arms. It felt as if something were trying to pull them into the water. According to witnesses, another child was one day lifted up into the air by an invisible force and hurled into the pond, where he quickly sank. They recovered his still living body sitting on a boulder in a manner not unlike the first victim. The above story was collected from a Nisei storyteller who claimed that the tale was true, although the exact location of the pond, the main characters in the events, and other specific information were lacking. The boy drowning in the pond story seems to have its roots more popular in the Kappa folklore than in actual events. However, a true ghost story of a boy in the pond did occur on Kauai, that's the last island in the Hawaiian chain, in May of 1951. See, this isn't a newspaper, guys. According to newspaper accounts, Joseph Tevis, 13-year-old, and older brother Harold, 27, had drowned in January of that year in the Kapahi Reservoir while fishing. In May, little Joe had begun communicating with his 10-year-old sister. The sister would ask the spirit, wait, what? In May, little Joe began communicating with his 10-year-old sister. The sister would ask the spirit simple yes or no questions, to which little Joe would respond by whistling once for no and twice for yes. Scores of cars carrying neighbors, social workers, nurses, reporters, and clergy crowded the Kapahi district, and over 100 people crowded into the Tevis home to hear the whistling boy of the pond. At one point, the cigar and cigarette smoke was so stifling the young girl fainted. The family claimed they had first heard the whistling outside their house late at night. They thought originally the eerie sound might be the spirit of their grandfather, who they believed had come back from the grave. But when the whistling began playing the tunes Tennessee Waltz and Letter of Two, little Joe's favorites, they decided it must indeed be their drowned son. So that was the thing that was whistling outside their house, was whistling the two favorite songs of little Joe who drowned. The existing crowd in the Tevis living room asked the spirit questions through the mediumship of the young girl. Was little Joey an angel? Yes, he was dressed in the garb of an angel, and he was taller than when he was alive. The doctor who was present examined the girl and determined that she was not producing the whistles. Her neck, mouth, and throat didn't move when the sounds were heard. When she sat in on one part of the room, the whistles were distinctly heard coming from the far corner. Little Joe was even privy to special political knowledge. One witness asked him, "Did Truman do the right thing by firing MacArthur?" The angelic answer was yes. As the excitement of the haunting continued, the whole island of Kauai seemed to arrive at the Tevis doorstep. Police estimated that 2,000 cars were parked in Kapahi, and those who couldn't jam into the house crowded around the windows and the lawn. Some visitors asked the little girl to touch them in hopes of being cured of illness, although she claimed no such power. On May 23rd, Honolulu radio station KTOH aired an interview or seance with the spirit of little Joe. Listeners heard a voice whistle the bells of St. Mary's and the Tennessee Waltz and several cowboy songs. Little Joe implored listeners to go to church and pray for his brother Harold, who had also drowned. Then he informed the public that at 5 o'clock that evening he would return to heaven and never visit Earth again. Whether the origins of the whistling were whether the origins of the whistling, the excitement of the haunting of little Joe caused was a fascinating glimpse into the supernatural interests and traditions of all Hawaiian people. That the boy should have drowned in the pond, and that his spirit could be heard calling from his watery grave, suggests the Japanese tradition of demon ponds and drowned obake might have very well be incited by the community interests. Kauai always had, after all, a significant population of Japanese Americans. Little Joe was not a Kappa, nor was he killed by the water monster, but the ghost of the pond was a widespread Kappa tradition. So that wasn't the Kappa, guys. But 6 years later, in April 1957, the Kappa legend surfaced again, causing hysteria, concerted community action. Half a dozen children attending Wahiawa Elementary School that year reported having seen what they called a green lady living in the Wahiawa Gulch behind the school gymnasium. Rumors of this strange creature rapidly spread among the children, leading the school's principal to suspect that mass hysteria was imminent. Police and reporters arrived at the scene and questioned the 6 children, all girls under 10, who described the green lady as having scaly, greenish skin and seaweed hair. Her feet resembled those of a duck, and her hands were claw-like. So that's the web feet right there, guys. And the seaweed hair, the greenish skin, the scaly. One of the girls said that the lady was also deformed, that she had no nose and only one ear. Another one thought that it was simply someone in a Halloween costume. Maybe a high school student playing a prank. The Waiwa Chamber of Commerce organized a search party that combed the gulch for the Green Lady but found nothing. The police officer in charge of the investigation stated to the press that the whole incident was a result of vivid imagination, with subsequent elaboration by young and impressionistic minds. But the Green Lady of Waiwa was not confined to that area. Children growing up near the present site of Makaha Elementary School, that's on the west side, in the early 1960s, remember a similar Green Lady who supposedly lived in the ponds and had seaweed hair and scaly skins. One informant reviewed how, as a child, a Hawaiian man had told him to stay away from the swamp because the Green Lady will get you. The reality of the Green Lady need not concern us here. After living in Hawaii for several years, even the most diehard skeptic refrains from here. Then this can be the so that's the story of the Kappa, guys. I wanted to tell you guys a story, a personal story that I had. I didn't see it myself, guys, but I did a little research, and it said the Kappa can like change their voice and it can sound like your friend and stuff. And like before, like I used to catch prawns and stuff. You gotta go in the river at nighttime to get the prawns. They're like giant freshwater shrimp. And me and my friend were in this river at night, and only me and him were in there, and we had like our flashlights, and we're going up the river, and then I saw the flashlight was like way up the river, like further deeper into the river, and then like I called, I was like, oh, I was calling my friend, and he was answering back like, oh, and then so like I was trying to catch up to him because it was so far ahead, the flashlight. I thought he was way up river, and then so I was moving fast, so I was going up the river, and right there I turned around, guys, and there was a flashlight like way behind me, and that was my friend down there that was behind me. So the light I saw up there and the thing that sounded like my friend was gone now. When I turned back around, it was gone, and I was like, I got so scared, guys. Like I started running for my friend, and it's all slippery and stuff, and I was falling down, catching cracks and donuts, but I got to my friend, and then we left. But that was pretty crazy. Then one other time, me, my friend, and my other friend, and we were in this other river up in the countryside, and we're doing the same thing, catching prawns. And then after we went, we came back, and then when we got back to the car, like my friend, he was like, he told us, bro, when we was up in the river, I swear I saw I saw something that had like a turtle on his back, like a turtle shell on his back out there. And like like this was before this book even came out, and before I even knew about the Kappa. But he said that, he said, bro, I saw something up there. It was like a human thing, but it had like a turtle shell on his back. Like he said that, guys. So believe what you will, guys. That's the story. That's a little story of the Kappa. And then the next story we're gonna be reviewing is, sorry for a long video. The next story we're gonna review the story of the faceless ghost of the Waialae Drive-In. But yeah, I thought I might share that story I had some personal experiences too with that Kappa. I mean, I don't know if it was the Kappa, but it was pretty crazy, guys. But yeah, that was the story of the Kappa. And let me show you the picture of what they might look like. Then we can cut out of here, guys. Sorry for a long video, but that's the Kappa right there. This one. See, he has a turtle shell back. He looks like a human. But yeah, that's the Kappa right there, guys. And I had a lot of experiences because I've been outdoors a lot growing up, and like I was by the ocean a lot. I used to be a commercial diver, used to fish, and like I surf, and I spent my whole life at the ocean, guys. And like I come in contact with some crazy stuff. Like I got a lot of stories, guys. I seen white ladies, I seen fireballs. But yeah, I can cut the video now. If you guys interested in more, please let me know. If I'm just wasting my time and you guys don't want to hear, it's cool. But if you guys want to hear more, they're pretty short stories. I'm gonna try to keep them short and skip through all the BS. But the next story I was thinking about reviewing is this one on the Faceless Lady Ghost. She's at one of the drive-ins. But yeah, let me know if you want to hear about that, guys. And thank you for joining me on my first one. Sorry it's kind of rough, guys. It's my first one, and I get kind of nervous when I read books in front of like large crowds and stuff. So thank you for joining me. Have a good night. A Surfer out.